3 days after the shooting of Jacob Blake in close range, in the back several times, the Wisconsin Department of Justice has released new information on what allegedly led to Blake getting shot several times in close range in his back as he was entering his own vehicle. Now, before I get to those details, let me just note that we've also learned that Blake is still in the hospital. He is suffering from very serious injuries, although he is expected to survive. He's been handcuffed to his hospital bed, and his father, Jacob Blake, told the press the following: "I hate it that he was laying in that bed with the handcuff onto the bed. He can't go anywhere. Why do you have him cuffed to the bed?" So that was his statement, but we are learning more about this investigation that's being done by the Wisconsin Department of Justice. So according to CNN, the incident began when a woman called police saying her husband was present and was not supposed to be on the premises. In a police call, dispatcher names Blake and says, quote, "He isn't supposed to be there," and that he took the complainant's keys and refused to leave. The dispatcher later explained she doesn't have more details because the caller was uncooperative, okay? So the earlier reports in the story, and I wanna be clear, there clearly is a 911 call. She called the police, right? So there's evidence of that. But earlier reports relied heavily on what witnesses saw. And witnesses had said that Jacob Blake was there to break up some sort of dispute between two women. Now, according to what we've learned recently, officers arrived on the scene and attempted to arrest Blake and used a taser in a failed attempt to stop him, the DCI said. Blake walked around his vehicle, opened the driver's side door, and leaned forward, the agency said. Now, remember, according to the witness who filmed the incident, there were 6 or 7 women shouting at each other on the sidewalk, and that Blake did not say anything to the women. So we don't know anything about the other women who were involved on the scene based on what witnesses said. This statement by the Wisconsin Department of Justice doesn't clarify anything about that, doesn't give us any information about it. But let me give you more about what we've learned. Kenosha police officer Rustin Shesky, who has been with the department for 7 years, then fired 7 times into Blake's back, the agency said. No other officer fired their weapon. The agency said Blake admitted he had a knife in his possession, and law enforcement agents said they recovered a knife from the driver's side floorboard of Blake's vehicle. Now, again, I wanna go back to what the witness testimony was. The individual who filmed the shooting had told reporters that the cops were telling him to drop his knife before he got anywhere near his vehicle, but that he didn't see Blake with a knife. Now, there's also an issue with the fact that the Kenosha Police Department does not require its officers to wear body cameras. And I think that that's a problem here because we would obviously need that footage in order to have some actual evidence, some surveillance of what actually happened in the lead up to the shooting. But the explanation from the Wisconsin Department of Justice does not answer several critical questions. For instance, the DCI does not indicate why police moved to arrest Blake. We don't know why they wanted to arrest him, whether Blake brandished or threatened to use the knife, or why Shesky shot so many times into Blake's back. And it does not mention his children in the vehicle or other family members standing feet away. So I mention that because we still have many questions, and based on what we know so far, I still don't see a justification for shooting a man several times in close range in his back. So Ben, I wanted to get your thoughts on what we've learned, what these updates are so far.
It's a lot of information and it's a lot of details that can't quite be corroborated, like you said, because they did not have their body cameras on. And so it really boils down to what people can see in the video from across the street. And for as far as I can see, I didn't see a knife. But that says a lot, right? They found the knife in the vehicle, but they were yelling, "Drop the knife, drop the knife." And it just kind of reminds me of so many scenarios we have with police officers where they say, stop resisting, stop resisting. They preemptively say things that they could later use in some type of prosecution against that individual. But all in all, no matter what they have added up to with these details, I have yet to see anything that suggests that this man was a threat to that officer's life such that he would fire 7 times.
Right, exactly. And so that's really the distinction that's important to keep in mind here, because the only time a cop is supposed to open fire is if his life is in jeopardy, if the suspect poses some sort of imminent threat to that individual, right? So we saw the video, we saw Blake attempt to calmly enter his vehicle, and we saw that he didn't pose a threat to the police official, and the police official shot him in his back. In fact, we learned a little more about the injuries that Jacob Blake is suffering, including multiple injuries in the shooting, like a gunshot wound to one arm, and he had damage to his kidney, liver, and spinal cord. Currently, he is paralyzed from the waist down. The doctors are unsure whether or not his paralysis is permanent. His family is hopeful that he'll make a full recovery. And honestly, I hope he does make a full recovery. And I want to hear from Jacob Blake. So far, we haven't been able to hear from him because he's been dealing with surgeries. He's probably under pain medication. So we haven't been able to get a statement from him. We can just basically go off of what we saw with our own eyes. And I'm always a little cautious in believing the narrative coming from the police officers involved, right? Because of course they have an interest in trying to protect themselves and defend the actions they took. But it's important to cover this story fairly and give you both sides and tell you what this investigation has found. But again, they haven't answered a lot of questions, including, did Jacob Blake have a knife in his hand? Was he threatening the officer with the knife? Was he posing any type of imminent threat? Those questions have not been answered yet.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.